Hey folks, Aunt Diane here. Um, I'm sure if you watch news videos or, you know, get in touch with what's going on in the world right now, you'd know about what's going on in Iran or Iran right now. Um, what's going on is that since 1979, when the Shah was overthrown and the Islamic Revolution started, the people of the country, a lot of people wanted him because the Shah was so terrible and treating the citizens badly and everything. And supposedly the older generation, they wanted to wear their robes and their Islamic wear. And whereas the Shah was more modernized and let women dress however they want, the new rules, you had to be covered up. In fact, a couple of years ago, since the Islamic Revolution, or the Islamic rule, was still going on in Iran, and it still is now, even though they're fighting it, a girl was executed just a couple of years ago because she was wearing her headscarf, but a little bit of hair was sticking out. I mean, that's ridiculous. And in the last few years, the citizens who might be Christian or, anything other than following Islam, they're rebelling. Unfortunately, the Israeli, not Israeli, oh God, no, Israeli, the Islamic army is shooting a bunch of them. President Trump was going to go in and, you know, take care of the problem. And supposedly he's still going to, but there's not a timeline for that yet. I mean, the warplanes are lined up and everything, but word on the street or on the web is that the other Islamic countries, especially Saudi Arabia, has told them not to do that. And the Ayatollah is saying that he's going to cut off his hands and his fingers, and he's an idiot. Which brings me back to when I first learned about all this going on. During the 1979 revolution, right beforehand, a bunch of Americans that were working at the Iranian embassy were taken hostage for over a year. And a little bit after that time, a lot of Americans were upset. In fact, we were so upset that I was like 17, so I thought I knew everything. And the people working at the 7-Eleven by the house were Indian, and we were calling them Iranians, which is terrible. We didn't know any better. I got to know the people afterwards, and they were very nice people. But what happened was, I learned a lot about it now. This is almost 50 years later, okay? There's a movie called Not Without My Daughter, starring Sally Field, and it's a true story about Betty Mahmoudi. She was married to an Iranian man called Moody Mahmoudi, I guess is his nickname. And they were living in the United States, and he was a doctor. And this is after the regime had changed to Islamic. His parents were dead, or at least his mom was dead, and his older sister kind of raised him. And they kept begging him, please, please come and visit, come and visit. And Mrs. Betty is her name, played by Sally Field, like I said, she did not want to go. She said there's a lot of fighting going on over there. It's very scary. They had a little 5-year-old daughter. And Mahtab was her name. This is all true story now, by the way. And her husband, Moody, got the Quran, which is the Islamic equivalent of our Bible, the Christian Bible, and he puts his hand on it and says, I promise you will be safe. No harm will come to you or Mahtab. So she's like, okay. She gets there and everybody's all happy and stuff, and as soon as they get off the plane, The sister-in-law, I guess you can say. I did not like her one bit. She immediately gave uh, Betty clothing to wear, including a veil. And they're driving back to the family's compound in Tehran, or just outside of Tehran. And the clothing police, or the morality police, pull over and are grabbing her and threatening her, and she doesn't know the language, grabbing and threatening her for a little bit of her hair showing. Meanwhile, Moody's uncle or brother-in-law is yelling, "Don't you realize when you do that, you're, that's like a stab in the heart of Muhammad." So Betty's like, I'm sorry. Now, as far as she's concerned, they're only staying for 2 weeks. After the 2 weeks are up, and she's getting really nasty vibes from the sister-in-law, who, like I said, was she was kind of a substitute mother for Moody once their mom died. And she kept giving her dirty looks and everything. The day came for them to leave, and he said, we're not leaving. She said, what? I lost my job, and, they're desperate for doctors here, and we're not going back. She said, well, I'm going back. You can't make us stay here. And he beats her up. He smacks her and goes, you are in my country now, and you will listen to me. He was always gentle as a lamb when they were in America. That's where they met, in America. And she was horrified. That night at dinner, by the way, they all sit on the floor, the extended family and everybody. The men get their food first, and then they let the women eat. But in the movie, it was a made-for-TV movie, but boy, was it good. And I've seen it about 10 times. And then everybody was eating at the same time. But first, the mullah or whatever, I don't know if it was Moody's father or uncle or whatever, but he would say the prayer, and then they could all eat. And since Betty did not know English, she asked the father to, translate to, I guess it was Farsi was the language, I think. Farsi, I'm pretty sure it's called Farsi. And she's saying, look, when we agreed to come here, Moody promised me on the Quran that no harm would come to us, and we'd only stay for 2 weeks and everything. And that's my dog snoring. That's Roxy. I said, promise that no harm would come to us, and it was hell. Later on, and she's crying, and nothing was done about it, of course. And the months go by, and she's trying to find ways to escape. And she goes shopping at the outdoor bazaar or market or whatever it is. This is the early 80s now, okay? And she goes by a shop, and the very, very kind man, one of the shops, allows her to use his phone. Because at the house, at the compound, Moody would not let Betty speak to her parents. He'd hang up on them. If she tried to make a call, the sisters and cousins or whatever, they were all spies. They all saw what she was doing, and they would report back to him. She even met an American lady at it was an American class to learn the Quran in English. And she befriended her, and she said, could you do me a favor? Gives her a letter. Could you smuggle this out and mail it to my parents? I don't know what's the matter with that lady. Her husband either found out or she gave it to her husband willingly. And she had a black eye and everything, and the husband said, she does not keep secrets from me. All this is going on. It's about 1.5 years now, and she decides she's going to try to escape. Now, since there were American hostages taken by the Iranians, the embassy, there's no more American embassy. But there is a Swedish embassy and a section for Americans. Moody has taken her passport and all her ID and stuff, and she said she was going shopping, and she took off running with her little girl, her 5-year-old girl, who was being made to go to school, and she was crying her eyes out. What a good little actress that played Mata. What an adorable little girl. And she was crying her eyes out and stuff, and they ran to the Swedish embassy. Where's your passport? My husband took it. They let her in. The lady speaking to her was Swedish, and she goes, well, can we just stay here until a flight comes ready to get us? And the lady's like, no, 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 you can't stay here. When you marry an Iranian man, you are automatically a citizen of Iran. She's like, I didn't know that. You know, she was so upset, and she eventually got out. But the story I'm trying to relay is that this happens in real life. After Betty and her daughter got out and got back to America, she actually started an organization for other women who are going through the same problem. There's another movie that's out, Mariel Hemingway, I believe. This one was where she divorced the guy, and he remarried a very religious, a Muslim woman, and they went to Jordan and took the little girl from the first marriage without telling the mom, and she had to go to Jordan and do some sneaky stuff to get the kid back. Now, what's happened in the last, 40-something years is, I did a video a long time ago on honor violence, and it happens a lot in the Muslim religion, but it also can happen in the Hindu religion, and, it doesn't necessarily have to be Islam. It's just, they say it's just the, and Sikh too, S-I-K-H, it happens there too. They say it's more of the country or the culture of where they live. Now, I know of a couple of Muslims who would never, ever dream of doing something like that. But what happens is, first of all, they make their women cover up with a veil. Are they that insecure that the woman's so beautiful that they don't want anyone to see her beauty? It's just really sick. But another thing is, you get old men that marry young girls. Now, some of the countries are updating laws, you have to be 18. But there are still a few that you're allowed to marry a little kid. I mean, it's really sick. And somebody once said, well, in America you used to marry young. Yeah, but the groom was young too. They didn't marry someone old enough to be their grandfather, for God's sakes. And if you refuse the marriage, that's where honor killing comes in. And they said out of all the Muslim countries, sorry how I look, it happens the most in Iran. There's a movie called The Stoning of Soraya M., and that's another true story. And she was married, but the man wanted a second wife and a young girl, a teenager, but he didn't have enough money to support 2 wives. So he made up a thing so that Soraya would be murdered so he could marry the new girl. It turned out he didn't get to marry her anyway, but the young girl anyway, but it's really sickening what's going on over there. So, a lot of people in the West, we are the West, United States, North America, Europe, Australia, we all know, and parts of Asia, we all know now that people move to our country from that country, and then they try to bring their customs over here. And it's not right. And some countries are a little bit too forgiving about it. And I think it's a bunch of crap. It's not fair. And what happens is they try to tell us what to do. Okay, New York City just elected a Muslim Muslim mayor, and saying, oh no, I'm not going to do this and that. He's going to make buses free and all this free childcare, all this crap, which he doesn't realize you have to get the approval of the governor and a lot of other things. You can't just say, what I say goes. It doesn't work that way. Well, a lot of people have since learned that now the younger generation of Iran, likes it the way it was when the Shah was ruling the country. They didn't like some of the rules. You know, he didn't have any rules how you dress, but he supposedly he was abusive too, but not anywhere near how Ayatollah is. The Shah had died, and now his son, that they call him the Crown Prince, he's in America, I believe, and he wants to take over, and the people want him to take over because as bad as the Shah was, Ayatollah was 10 times worse, and I'm sure that the new Shah, who's my age actually, in his early 60s, would learn from his father's mistakes and make it so that, you know, that the population would agree with what he did and not be picketing and fighting. They say 20% of the people in Iran want to keep the Ayatollah. They're either ultra-religious or something. In addition to a lot of people around the world turning away from Islam, even people that grew up in very strict Muslim countries, they are walking away from Islam. Mostly it's younger people. But I think it's probably the older generation that is wants to keep the Ayatollah. The last week or two, there were a lot of videos online of the Iranian people, which is mostly a younger people now. It's a new generation of people who have become adults, picketing on the streets and actually setting police buildings and other buildings on fire. And the regular mainstream news is hardly mentioning it. What a bunch of crap. If you look on YouTube, you will find some credible channels. And one channel is a guy that actually grew up there, and he's very modernized, and he's living in England, I believe, and he's been worried about his father, who's over there, and heard he was safe. They lie over there, the people who are in charge. They call it the IIRC. They said only a couple hundred were dead. No, the truth is thousands are dead. And if you watch those videos, I'm not trying to spew hate or anything, but the thing is, people have certain human rights. People have a right to be free and wear what they want, I mean, as long as they're not vulgar. And it's really not fair, what's going on. And the young people, understandably, are very frightened. And they have no weapons, okay? But the people in government and the police who are working for the great Ayatollah, they have lots of weapons, and these people are helpless. So, we're waiting to see when Trump sends some help. Apparently, there are planes flying around waiting to make them move. But I'm not going to make a judgment on that because, first of all, you can't give away countries' secrets and say, I'm going to attack exactly when, then they'd be ready for them. So they don't even let us know, right? The thing is that the regular mainstream news mentions very little about it. And it's kind of frustrating, right? But I want to apologize again for being absent for so long. Not that you're all waiting with bated breath. I lost a subscriber, but I don't blame whoever it was. My husband's going to be going for radiation treatment soon, so I'm back and forth with him to the doctors, and I'm a nervous wreck, and There's a lot of stuff going on around here, but so I try to sneak these in. And I'm going to be honest, I've been obsessed with this story with Iran because these people, there are churches in Iran, okay? Christian churches, and I'm surprised they let them exist, which is a good thing. And after the October 7th Israel attacks, you know, they're saying free Palestine. They hide the fact that Hamas was using Palestinian citizens as human shields and blaming it on the Israelis. That's not right. And, you know, we just got to look at things more realistically. We have to pray. We can't just send out blind hatred. We need to know what's going on. And I don't even know what's going on sometimes. But I have researched a lot over the past couple of years, the last 10 years. I've been very interested in this because it really bothers me that, you know, especially women don't have human rights. There's a story, and this is true. An American lady whose husband, I guess, years ago was working in Iran. He was on an assignment, and they were visiting people at a house, a private home, and it was hot weather, and they were invited to a barbecue or something, and they had a pool, and the lady's like, oh, good, we can go swimming. And the people in the house says, no, women can't go in the pool, just men. I mean, that's not right. That's not fair. If you see beaches there, you see women going in with their whole get-up and everything. I mean, it's crazy, a whole burqa and the whole everything. And I just want to say that, you know, we have to watch out for our fellow man, and not by hating, but by praying and hoping that the people will, you know, as many will survive as possible. And to know that the younger generation does not want the Islamic regime. 47 years is when it started. Yeah, they were all chanting, and when I saw Not Without My Daughter, in the beginning when they're driving home, picking up Betty and her family from the airport, all over town you see the pictures of that ugly dude and people, you know, cheering him on. That's not going on anymore. Now they hate him. And it's really hard. And, you know, if you don't believe one story, go around and look at some others. You'll see the stories. And when they all start saying the same thing, you'll know that they're true. And it's just horrifying. But I don't listen to mainstream news most of the time because they'll wait until something happened 2 weeks ago and then just report it. Maybe they're afraid of stepping on somebody's toes. Maybe they don't get permission from their bosses. Maybe their sponsors would not like it. But I just want to say we need to stick together and, you know, try to love each other instead of hating each other. And I'm telling you, it's not easy. I cannot love the Ayatollah. And sure, I don't know. I've never been to Iran, but I'd like to someday. In fact, the Iranians, before all this happened, they were Persians. Persia sounds so much nicer, doesn't it? But, you know, we can always pray that things will get better. And I do have a lot of scam stories to tell. And I just, like, this other stuff has occupied my mind and my husband and stuff. And in little breaks, I'm going to tell a few scam stories because it's scary what's going on now. I just want to let you know, yeah, I know I look like crap. I'm working on my teeth, and my hair looks terrible because I put this treatment in it, so it looks greasy, but it's not. I'll talk to you all soon, and I want to send you my love. And thank you for whoever does watch this and whoever has not quit my channel. Love you all. Have a good one. Bye-bye.